Quinnipiac Rugby continues to impress, but is it possible that a team could be waiting in the wings to hand them their first loss? Also, it is a time to panic for women's soccer, and we will discuss what led to men's soccer team's first win of the season this past weekend. That's all coming up next on Bobcat Breakdown. Hello everyone, and welcome to another fall sports edition of Bobcat Breakdown. I'm your host, Tom Albanese, and joined alongside me today are some of the young, talented sports minds at Quinnipiac. First, we have a man that watches so much sports very closely and is just always willing to spark a debate, Morey Hershgordon. Morey, how are you doing today?
Tom, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate it.
No problem. And next up, we have another talented analyst who is always ready for action, and he could even spark up a big debate himself, Voss. Connor, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Looking to spark up that debate you said, though.
Well, we're really excited. So, gentlemen, let's get started with this breakdown. So, the women's rugby team is off to another strong start this season. And after defeating Life University in their season opener, the Bobcats earned a decisive 50-17 win over the visiting Black Knights of Army this past weekend. Now, according to a report released by golfonrugbyreport.com back on August 25th, Army came into the match ranked 6th, while Quinnipiac was ranked number 11. Junior Natalie Costco led the Bobcats, scoring 3 tries and recorded 1 assist. And after a defensive-minded game early on, the Bobcats began to take over as Elisa Cuellar opened the scoring with a try off an assist from Costco. And sophomore Madison Gagekis earned her first try of the season. Then Costco got in action, scoring 2 consecutive tries, one off an interception off Army. With Quinnipiac up 24-0, Army scored their first try later in the first half, making it 24-7 at halftime. But Costco, Shannon Durkin, Haley Wyatt, and freshman Megan Johnson all scored tries in the second half to lead the Bobcats to the victory. And, of course, Anya McKeever went 5 for 8 on conversions, contributing 10 points. So, Morey, as you were seeing this team playing in their home opener, what are your overall impressions of the team after the first 2 games?
Tom, this team is scary good. Becky Carlson has a ton of talent across the board, starting with Natalie Costco up top. And the whole team, just a talented bunch. They have a lot of good chemistry. They blew out Army 50-17, as you mentioned, on Saturday in their home opener. And that was an Army team who went to the Final Four last year. So if they can play as good as they did on Saturday, I don't see them losing anytime soon in the regular season.
And Connor, what about you?
Well, I have to agree. I mean, it's really hard to say anything else. They've been dominant so far, as Morey just said. They won 50-17 against an Army team who made the Final Four last year, and two of the 3 tries that Army scored, one was complacent, and one was off a missed line-out, which was right by the in-goal area. So Army really didn't take advantage of anything. Quinnipiac possessed the ball, they kept the ball, they got it back. They were able to make stops on the goal line and really show that they're what they're made of offensively and defensively.
Yeah, they began the game very defensive-minded and leading into each of the offensive possessions, as I mentioned. And we also noticed that Army came into this game as a better ranking than Quinnipiac, and definitely Quinnipiac took advantage of the game. Morey, what did you have to say?
Yeah, Army came in at 6th in the country. Quinnipiac was 11th. One thing I want to mention, though, Quinnipiac got off to a very slow start. It took over 20 minutes to get the first points on the board. When Quinnipiac plays Dartmouth this Saturday, the following weekend against Norwich, who blew Quinnipiac out last year here at home, Quinnipiac has to jump out to an early lead and have that confidence booster from the start. A slow start against a good team may result in a deficit at halftime, and we haven't seen the Bobcats have a deficit this season so far, but down the road, I don't know if it's going to be good for the Bobcats facing a deficit.
And definitely, Morey, and you're leading me into our next question here. So the team performed well last season, leading up to a playoff berth, but they failed to get past the first round. And so in order to get over that hump and possibly win a national championship, Connor, what other player besides Natalie Costco needs to step up their game to a completely another level in order to help them team get over that hump?
To be honest, early on in this season, it is kind of difficult to say. Every player has been really uniquely dominant in their own way. However, I'd have to say Elisa Cuellar, she's she's an important part of the offense for the Bobcats. She's on the opposite side of Costco, so when Costco's not available to be open, they got to get that ball to Cuellar. And Cuellar, she's a small girl at 5'1". She can get in between some of those taller tacklers. She had a try in the last game. She's been all over the ball. She's actually been making a lot of good catches on laterals that were misthrown. She's a great ball handler. Really, if they can get her in the game and get her some big runs, she can really make a big.
Tom, Connor, it's got to be sophomore Maggie Miles. She had 17 tackles against Life University in their first game. She comes from a family that has been all about rugby their whole life. Her grandfather, father, and brother all played in college. At the age of 14, she was on an Eastern Pennsylvania rugby team, an all-star team training with some of the best players in the Mid-Atlantic region. She was the youngest player on that team. She was also on an under-17 United States of America all-star team. And this past summer, 2 summers ago, she was on the U20 national team with fellow Bobcat Natalie Costco, in which they spent 10 days training up in Lake Placid, New York. She's had a lot of experience. She's got to step up besides Costco.
But Morey, you're talking about a sophomore on this team, and neither of you mentioned any of the senior leaders on this team who may have had productive seasons last year, but they could maybe even step up their game to another level to help players like Natalie Costco, like Shannon Durkin, and newcomer Anya McKeever, even to bring her into the mix as well. Morey, or any of you guys, how come no one said any of the seniors?
Well, I'm pretty sure Cuellar is a senior.
All right, going back to other seniors on the team, like any of those senior leaders.
I like Jen Solomon, Tom. She's been with the program since they started in 2011. In her first year, they were 3-5-1. Her sophomore year, they went 15-1 and lost in the national semifinals, ended up winning the third-place consolation game. She's been with them through the start, and Solomon is a great body on the field, calms a lot of the younger players down, and really helps this team gel.
And very good both way, guys. Both of you have got a lot of interesting points. So we're going to take a quick first break. But when we return to Bobcat Breakdown, our conversation from last week about the women's soccer team will continue. Do our analysts feel any panic from the team's lack of offense? Find out when we return.
Wake up, Quinnipiac. It's the morning after. Hey! Come on, guys. It's time for TMA. Let's go. What's the morning after? Mondays at 10, only on Q30.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken with cheese for just over $4, giant cheesesteak subs, and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Thanks for sticking around on Bobcat Breakdown. The Quinnipiac women's soccer team continued its season on Friday on the road against Yale, and the Bobcats were held scoreless once again, losing to the Bulldogs by a final score of 2-0. Carlin Hudson and Geneva Dex scored the goals for the Bulldogs, and the Bobcats finished the game with only 11 total shots and only 5 of them on goal. Natalia Grotsky finished the game with 4 saves, but she allowed the 2 goals. Now with this shutout, the Bobcats have not scored a goal, get ready for this, in 638 minutes and 20 seconds, going back to 6 straight games dating back to last season. So Quinnipiac will have its first home game of the season next weekend against the University of Vermont Catamounts. So, Morey, let's start with you. Let's continue about this discussion last week. What does Dave Clark have to change with this offense to put them back on track?
Tom, Dave Clark doesn't have to do anything. It has to come within. He's not on the field. These players have to unite. They have to say, okay, these games are in non-conference. We have a couple more non-conference tune-ups before they face Iona in a couple weeks on a Wednesday afternoon here at Quinnipiac, and they have to be the ones that want to put the ball in the back of the net. I think it has to start with Christina Cesarini, a senior attack. She played fabulously against Yale. she does a good job, especially when Quinnipiac takes the ball deep into an opponent's territory and finds a foot or a head on the ball inside the 6. Unfortunately, balls haven't gone in the back of the net, but it's nothing with Dave Clark. It's got to be with the players from within. They are missing a key piece in Taylor Healy, who broke her foot. She was going to be a senior defenseman this year. The defense helps the offense out a lot, and without Healy in the back line, the offense can't do much without her.
And Connor, what about you?
Well, I tend to agree. I mean, aside from changing formations, which really it's something that they practice in the preseason, changing a formation at this point would be weird. It really has to come with getting shots on goals. In the first 3 games, the Bobcats only had 4 shots on goal. I mean, when you're not getting the ball on the net, it's kind of difficult to put goals in the net. Now, there was more hope against Yale when they had 5 shots on goal. But other than that, they just really need to get the ball towards the net.
And players in particular like Kat Young and Jessica Fontaine, who have been really big offensive producers for this team, they just have not shown up anywhere like on the field so far this entire season. So that's going to lead us into our next question. So who on the offensive side, Connor, really needs to step up right now?
Oh, I know it's a little weird to say as a sophomore, but she was the leading scorer for the Bobcats last year, Jessica Fontaine. She had 3 goals and 3 assists last year, including the last goal that the Bobcats scored. Really, she was where the offense lay when the ball was not with Anya McKeever, who, as we discussed earlier, is now on the rugby team. Fontaine has moments of brilliance, really, she does. And she's there's not enough support around her, to be fair. But for the Bobcats to step up and score, they really need her.
Connor,
to put the
Fontaine
ball
didn't
in the
even
net.
start against Yale. She was put on the bench due to a back injury. I think it has to be Pandolfi. She's leading the team in shots along with Cesarini. And corner kicks and free kicks have been a low point for this Bobcats team. They got to get the ball a little higher in the air. And if I were Dave Clark, I got to send another 1 or 2 of my players in that box and give ourselves a chance to put the ball in the back of the net, because right now nothing's really working, and you got to go now to more of an extreme in order to score.
And definitely, and we just haven't seen those production. And Morey, I love the point going back to the corner kicks, and especially watching the Yale game, you see these kicks, how they go not even close to the net, and no one is just there to clean up for the Bobcats. So that's definitely something they got to clean up, along with possibly even changing the formations. But we will have to see down the line what Dave Clark decides to do with this team. So now, guys, we're going to go ahead and rate this team on the classic panic meter. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and Morey, we're going to start with you. How worried are you about this team?
Tom, I'm only at a 3, and here's why. They're facing a Vermont team. Vermont is on a 3-game losing streak. All 3 games are on the road. They've given up the first goal or 2 goals in all 3 of the games. The Bobcats are at home for the first time in the season on a new sodded field Saturday afternoon, much like the men's team were last year. The men's team was 0-2 this same Saturday a year ago. They faced an out-of-conference opponent in Holy Cross. They beat Holy Cross 1-0, and then pretty much cruised to a MAC championship. That could be the same thing for this women's team.
See, I think the difference is that this is an entirely different team. The panic meter needs to be up near a 7 or an 8 at this point. As Tom said, they haven't scored in 6 straight games. You are right. You are correct in that there is a home game coming up, and that is the first that they have this season. But they need to be really cautious and keep scoring for the next game.
And guys, just really quickly, do you think playing this next game at home is going to help the team after being on the road for so much time?
If playing at home doesn't help, I don't know what will. They've played on the East Coast, they've played on the West Coast, now they're at home. If they lose at home, I don't know where else they have to play. Maybe they got to take it out to England.
Nice. I mean, honestly, yeah, really, that's what it comes down to. The home field advantage is where it needs to start. And if they can't score against the Catamounts on Saturday, then really it's tough. The Catamounts have given up a goal or more in each game, so they're not the strongest defensive team, so the Bobcats really need to take advantage of that. Hopefully they'll get some home rolls and end up winning, or even tying would be useful at this point in the season.
Going back to my point earlier and where they haven't played at home yet, maybe some people will forget about their record, show up. It should be a beautiful day on Saturday, support the Bobcats, and with a home crowd, maybe they can do something.
Well, only time will tell, guys, to see if they can finally, first of all, score and finally get a tie or a win to keep their hopes high, on the season. So after that, we're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to step away from the women's team and head to the men's soccer side and discuss their start to the season. Don't change the channel. Bobcat Breakdown. We'll be right back.
The Bobcat Shop, located at 1010 Sherman Avenue in Hamden. Your #1 choice for Bobcat merchandise. The Bobcat Shop features 2 floors of countless styles and colors. With a full 19,000 square foot screen printing and embroidery operation on the premises, Campus Customs and Simplify can design and decorate any garment or promotional product as quickly as needed. Stop in and say hi.
Wake up, Quinnipiac! It's the morning after! Hey! Come on, guys, it's time for TMA! Let's go! What's the morning after? Mondays at 10, only on Q30!
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken with cheese for just over $4, giant cheesesteak subs, and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
We are back here on Bobcat Breakdown. Eric DaCosta's squad started the season with 2 tough games in the Lakeside Classic in Indiana against Northwestern and Northern Illinois, losing 2-0 and 3-0 respectively. This past week, the Bobcats hosted the ACC powerhouse Eagles of Boston College and the Providence Friars. Against the Eagles, the Bobcats only managed 10 shots with only 2 of them on goal. It was a physical and defensive game, but the Bobcats suffered their 3rd straight loss to start the season by a final score of 2-0. And on Sunday, Quinnipiac's luck changed after defeating Providence 3-1 to earn their first win of the season. The offense started 3.5 minutes into the game when freshman Shaquille Huggins scored off an assist from junior James Greco. Senior Marshall Baker and sophomore James Doig also added goals for the Bobcats in the win. Providence came into the game with a 3-0 record, so the Bobcats decisively gave the Friars their first loss. So Morey, what were your initial thoughts of the team's performance against these 2 tough opponents in Boston College and Providence?
Tom, thanks for always giving me the first shot at these answers, because if I was Connor, I'd be very upset. But in the Boston
personal.
College game on Thursday, Borja Goita made an uncharacteristic mistake on the first goal from the Eagles. Just a ball across the field that he mistimed. Ball went into the back of the net. Kind of put the Bobcats back on their heels at first. They played a good game for the majority of it. Eric Panzer, though, had 2 yellow cards, so he was thrown out of the game with just 4 minutes to play. He wouldn't play in the Providence game on Sunday either. Never really got into a flow towards the later end when they were trying to come back, but down 2-0, couldn't really do anything. 2-0 loss. Bobcats shouldn't be affected too much from that loss. They bounced back against Providence, 3-1 victory, which was pretty surprising. I mean, they came out of nowhere. You talk about the girls' team being 0-4. Why can't they do something? The men's team was 0-3 coming in against the Providence team, who was preseason picked 5th in the Big East. They come out with a 3-1 victory, surprising on that end. So the weekend was kind of up and down for the men's soccer team, and I don't really know what to expect in the future.
And Connor, what about you?
Well, Tom, you said their luck changed over the week, but really luck had nothing to do with it. It was a big part of those two, the 2 switching was the effort. Against the Eagles, the team really, they were kicked into a lull. They didn't possess the ball. They didn't attack when Boston College had the ball. Boston College was able to really just dribble around the team at a lot of points and really keep the ball from the Bobcats, who weren't really doing much of anything. They weren't getting air on their shots. They were just kind of waiting. They were complacent during that game. However, what changed with Providence was that they were doing exactly the opposite. They possessed the ball. When they got goals, they weren't complacent. They didn't sit back in the defense. They do work from the back, yes, but they were possessing the ball in their own offensive zone, not trying to rest. They were going towards the goal for the entire game, looking to score. Providence really, although they had a few sets, they looked like the mismatched team in that game. The Bobcats' energy with Maximilian Rothenbucher was playing incredibly well. He's all over the place. That kid showed speed, he showed hustle, he showed heart. He was everywhere in that game. So really, what you saw was two totally different teams. You saw what they shouldn't be capable of and what they are entirely capable of. When they scored 3 goals against Providence, that was the first time they scored 3 goals since November of 2012 against Farley Dickinson. That was over a season ago. This team is capable of a lot more than I think what people think they are.
It kind of makes a good point, Tom. You don't really know which Bobcats team is going to show up. They're very young. They lost Simon Hind, Brandon Straingood, so they're still trying to even some of the kinks out on the field. But Eric DaCosta, long-time coach here at Quinnipiac, played for Quinnipiac, knows how to win a championship. We saw what happened last year. They should be okay.
Now, Connor, going back to when you were talking about the Boston College game, they did have maybe not the most possession like earlier in the game. It was mostly a defensive-minded game. But what do you think they should have done different in order to get them past BC? Because obviously BC, as mentioned, is a big ACC powerhouse.
Well, it's what I just said they did against Providence that got them the win in that game, is that they need to attack.
But I mean, like back to the BC game. Like,
Tom, BC was picked 5th out of 6 teams in their division in the ACC. They're no powerhouse. Quinnipiac could just as well hold their own with the Eagles and some of the other teams on the lower part of the ACC. That's how talented this Quinnipiac team can be, as they showed on Sunday.
They sure are, gentlemen. Now let's go back to the next question. So, does this team look stronger or weaker with the new pieces that they have after Morey talking about how they lost Simon Hind and Brandon Straingood from last season? So going off that question, can Eric DaCosta lead this team back to another MAC title and then back to the NCAA tournament? Connor, what do you think?
It's kind of hard to tell at this point. There are so many new pieces. They have transfers with James Greco, who's done an excellent job so far. Shaquille Huggins coming into this season, Rothenbucher, who I already brought up. There's a lot of variables right now. The effort seems to be there. From the Providence game, you can see the talent is there. They have the scoring, and you know that from last year, they were a defensive-minded team. Now we're seeing that the offense is there. Can they put both of those pieces together? I think so. They were picked 2nd in the MAC this year, behind Monmouth, who they beat last year in the MAC final to reach the tournament. Honestly, they are certainly capable. We just need to see more with the season going forward.
If they play like they did on Sunday, they could go to the Elite 8, even the Final 4 in the NCAA tournament. You don't
That's
really
a little
know.
bold. You see, the West Coast talent is there. That's a little bold to say that they'd make the Final 4 from the MAC.
VCU, Florida Gulf Coast in basketball, you don't know, Connor. If a team gets hot, a team can go all the way. They're college athletes. A team can have a bad day, a team can have a great day. You don't really know. Going back to Tom's question, I do think they can win the MAC championship, go to the NCAA tournament. They were top 20 in the country last year in goals allowed per game. They bring all of their 4 backline in Ashton Pett, Stevenson Hawkey, Toby Esch, and Eric Panzer, along with Borja Ngoita, who was the MAC goalkeeper of the year last year. But I like the young freshman in Maximilian Rothenbucher. He played 10 years with Bayern Munich in their system at the U23 level. James Greco, the transfer from Ryder, as Connor mentioned, he started all 18 games last year for the Bronx. And Shaquille Huggins showed what he could do on Sunday with putting the ball in the back of the net. I don't see why this Bobcats team can't repeat.
All right, Morey, now you just mentioned a key name on the Bobcats in Borja Ngoita, who is going to be key for the Bobcats on their defense. Now, other than senior Marshall Baker for the offense for the Bobcats, what sophomore or junior needs to have a big year to help the Bobcats return for their 2nd MAC title, Morey?
I don't think it's a sophomore or a junior. I think it's one of each. It's James Doig and Rafael Carvalho. They both play in the midfield. In order to have the defense gel with the offense, they are the bridge, Doig and Carvalho. We know how talented that back line is. We know how good that front line can be with Baker, with Huggins, with Rothenbucher. But last year, the midfield was the key to their success. Yes, they lost Simon Hind, but Doig and Carvalho pose great chemistry, and they've been there in winning a MAC championship last year. Those are definitely the two that have to step up this season.
Yeah, and I can't help but agree with Doig. Carvalho coming in for Doig off the bench sometimes, but I would personally, I'd say I'd go back to James Greco, actually. He had 2 assists in the game against Providence, and he's been pretty much the place kicker for the Bobcats this year. His centers have been excellent. He takes corners that are great. I mean, he managed to create 2 goals by himself in the past game. Of course, not by himself, you know what I mean. He's all over the place. He possesses well. He gets the ball where it needs to be, something that Doig did a lot of last year, but Greco now coming off of a great season with Ryder. Honestly, he's been showing a lot. And Tanner Jobe, he comes in for Marshall Baker, actually, and he's essentially a Marshall Baker a clone in a sense. He's a speedy, athletic guy who, although his soccer knowledge isn't up there with Marshall Baker, he's still a very talented guy coming from 2 very successful seasons with Southern Connecticut State University last year.
Well, Connor, mentioning Greco being a transfer from Ryder, he hasn't really got off to the strong start. He did play well against Providence, but what do you see in him bringing to this team down the line?
Well, I mean, like I just said, he's the place kicker. He's every time the whistle is blown, he's the one putting the ball into the box. He's the one putting the ball where it needs to go. I mean, he's a pretty integral part of the game. If he's not in the game, then it's going to be someone else out of position who's going to have to place the ball as accurately as he does, and that is a hard talent to come by.
Something that I forgot to mention earlier with the back line, Eric Panzer didn't play in the game against Providence. Stevenson Hawkey was injured. He was seen in a boot around campus after that game. We don't know how long he will be out for, but Eric DaCosta played at Quinnipiac. He played defense. He knows how to have a strong core back there. They beat Providence with only 2 of their 4 starting defensemen. I mean, this team really, the sky's the limit.
And the player who came in to replace Hawkey, Pustari, number 2, he's a freshman defenseman, and he played an excellent game coming in for Hawkey. Hawkey, you couldn't tell at first how bad the injury was, but yeah, at the end of the game, he had the full leg cast and everything. Pustari came in and played an excellent game. He held his ground as a freshman defenseman. That he'd only played 1 game before that with only a few minutes. He showed great potential and great talent where Hawkey was missing.
Connor, he did show great potential and great talent, but they were also up 3-1. So they had a lead, which is a good thing because you want a freshman to come into one of his first Division I games and have that lead under his belt so there's not so much pressure. But down the stretch, if he gets another opportunity, if Hawkey is sidelined for multiple weeks, then we'll have to see what comes from him.
Absolutely, and gentlemen, those are great points by both of you. And we talked about how Providence came into that game owning a 3-0 record, and Quinnipiac with a big decisive win in that game to get their season turning around. As of right now, of course, we'll see down the line if they can continue that success. And that's going to just about do it for here on Bobcat Breakdown. Big thanks to Morey, Hershgordon, and Connor Voss for their great work tonight. For more information about Q30 Sports and QBSN or the Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network, follow us on Twitter at Q30 Sports and at QBSN. For all of our panelists, I'm Tom Albanese. Have a great night, everyone.